and train our students to think critically, we're golden. In terms of my personal background, I was a planner with the Private Industries Council. I led the project and created a document that called the Literacy Study for Northern Worcester County. And it provided a basis for colleges and organizations to have adult basic education ESL. I'm currently a professor at the University of Phoenix, an online professor in communications. I worked at Mount Wachusett Community College and worked with all the departments to really promote all their wonderful programs, but also education and training for job training. I worked with the Franklin County School Committee Caucus and last year created the Farm to School Forum for the entire Franklin County region, looking at the whole nutritional situation in our school systems and pushing towards the implementation of local foods into our K through 12 and even in colleges. I feel that I am very educationally oriented. It is the foundation of civilization and a just society.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And our final question before we move on to the public questions. And we start with Representative Andrews. What is the importance of social services to our area? Are we unique as an area with regards to social services? What special problems do we have? What are some areas that we need to address more effectively?
Again, we should have about an hour on this, but our area, probably half to 70% of our towns have families in high need, whether it's elder families or younger families. And that's shown by our per capita income and our number of children on subsidized meals. And we don't have the tax base to help offset that, so we're very stretched with our money. Our seniors need a lot more support than they're getting. Our youth, we have a suicide issue in Templeton and in the area and with some of our young people. We have youth that don't believe that others believe in them. And we're going to have to get to that because we shouldn't have any young people feeling alone or by themselves and don't think they have a better future. So we've got opportunities to look at that. So social services are critically important. Food, shelter, somebody that cares, and a place to get networked and helped, whether it's medical help, counseling, or just a friend. So I'm a huge supporter of that. I know our area needs it. We've got some towns, few, like Belchertown, District A, Gill, and Irving in a little better shape, but the other ones we've got some work to do and we need to do it as a community and as a partnership.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Well, the North Republican Community Coalition has certainly worked for 28 years very closely with all of the social service providers in the region. We don't provide social services, however. We just help to sort of connect people to what they need. And we clearly get an earful each and every day at my job with what people need. With economic hardship comes some very specific issues that arise in a community. Those include higher rates of substance abuse, high rates of teen pregnancy, high rates of domestic abuse, all issues which have to have intervention and treatment. But we really need to invest in prevention. Prevention programs are where your dollars make sense and where it's cost effective to really make a difference. If we are promoting pre-kindergarten and very early childhood programs and services through our education systems that already exist, we're going to cut off a lot of those social ills from forming later. We have to look at social service needs that cut across all age spectrums. There's early childhood needs, there's whole family needs, there are certainly teen and youth needs, as well as adults and our elders. Often, those folks who are most impacted economically are really struggling with meeting even most basic needs. We have to look at those safety nets and make sure that those are intact. I'm a firm believer in giving people a hand up, not a hand out. Recently, there's been a lot of media focused on abuse and fraud in a lot of our systems, and I think there's going to be abuse and fraud in all of our systems. That's just the way it works. But we can certainly do a much better job of tightening those things up without taking away the safety net that still needs to exist.
Thank you. Ms. Fraser?
Unfortunately, with the economic downturn, there was a consolidation of services. So that you had everything from the registry of motor vehicles to unemployment to you name it, moved out from, say, the Athol Orange area, out to Gardner, out to Greenfield, and then some services went all the way to Fitchburg. I'm very familiar with the transportation issue. When I was at Wachusett Community College, one of my special programs that I was in charge of was bringing transportation to the region, and I chaired the Northern Tier Transit Coalition, which brought the Link bus system. That helps somewhat, but we really need to bring, once again, we're behind the 8 ball. Athol and Orange was recently featured in the Boston Globe as having one of the highest rates of foreclosure of any place in the state. We have housing issues. We have food security issues. Food security is going to be a major issue when you consider the drought in the Midwest and the rising cost of food. The people at the bottom are going to be hard-pressed to find a meal. I've been reading how many of the food banks have less and less food or grants available. There's less and less food available for people, and yet the need just escalates. The comprehensive health care bill that was just passed has special provisions where they're going to be looking, they're going to track, oh, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And finally, Mr. White.
Thank you. Social services are a fundamental of democratic ideals. In the preamble of the Constitution, one of the things that's glazed over is that we provide for public defense and promote the general welfare. We take care of our people. The problem is we also have to take care of our taxpayers, because the taxpayers are the ones that pay for that. I believe that over social programs, we need to be, again, pushing the jobs. When the jobs are here, you'll need less social programs. You provide more money into the region, then those social programs become less and less necessary. However, they need to be provided. Now, one of the ways that those programs from the state are provided is through the EBT cards. The representative already mentioned that the state budgets are running slim, taxes are being eaten up, but we need the money to do these things. So, in the recent vote on the EBT Welfare Reform Act, unlike the current representative, I would have voted for the reform, because I believe that it wasn't anti-poor, but pro-taxpayer. Reforms that were required and then that it's looked at was restricting the use of EBT cards on pornography, firearms, tickets, movies, cosmetics, travel, jewelry, and bond for defendants.
Same-sex marriage, I totally support it. It's a matter of civil rights as far as I can see. Our Constitution says all are created equal, and I don't think that it listed any exceptions. If it did, I was missing those. I believe that all are created equal. And in terms of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, people should not be forced into accepting unacceptable marriage choices. They should be allowed to marry whom they love, etc. In terms of single-payer health care, I totally support it, although I am very impressed with the comprehensive health care cost containment measures that were just voted on late last night. I feel that it's a step in the right direction. They're going to be really tracking very closely the various the costs and even administration costs, and there will be penalties for people who go too high. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. White.
Okay. Same-sex marriage, I believe, is a no-brainer. It's simple civil rights. I don't believe that the government has a right to tell any two people who want to be in love and want to be married that they can't be. It has nothing to do with me unless it's my marriage. And I support the individual's right to do those things. It wasn't too long ago then that a black man and a black woman, or vice versa, couldn't get married down south. That was clearly clearly a violation, as I believe that the same-sex marriage laws were, and I believe that now we've righted that. Single-payer health, it's a great idea. I think it would be wonderful. I want to give the Massachusetts plan a little bit of time before I totally endorse it, because I think in a perfect world, single-payer, of course, would be the best. But we don't have a perfect world, I tend to notice. Citizens United, that is just a ruling that was crazy, because the fact of the matter is corporations aren't people. It's just not a fact. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Anders?
I support same-sex marriage, and I know it's a sensitive issue for many. When we were at the town picnic here in Templeton, one of the ladies from the local churches, we had a 40-minute discussion. And what we need to continue to learn is we've got to coexist even when we don't agree, because there'll be things people will never agree on. But how do we live together in love and justice and fairness? And so those are some of our challenges on this issue and some of the others on right to choose, etc. Totally support single-payer health. We've got to get a system that gives everybody good health care in the wealthiest country in the world. And on Citizens United, absolutely agree. Last night we passed half of the step forward on addressing that mass. We did a resolution, but we had a disclosure bill coming out of the Progressive Caucus. We were unable to get that done. But I've been proactive on that in the local area to, again, overturn a very inappropriate and damaging to our society movement.
Thank you, Ms. Byler.
The three issues that are part of this question are certainly far-reaching as far as public policy and certainly stretch well beyond the bounds of Massachusetts. On same-sex marriage, I absolutely agree with my three fellow Democrats that same-sex marriage is absolutely a civil right and a right for everyone. I've been married almost 30 years, and I think that everybody out there should have that same opportunity, no matter who it is they marry. On single-payer health care, I absolutely support single-payer health care with a but. And my but is that we have to really clearly look at what model of single-payer health care we want to move in the direction of. We also have to really have a thoughtful transition plan. One of the things that was difficult in making the transition in Massachusetts to the health reform that we've experienced the last few years is that there wasn't necessarily all of the thinking ahead about the long-term ramifications. And finally, on Citizens United as a ruling, I think that's another civil rights issue. Corporations are not people. People are what make up this country.
Thank you. And our next audience question, we will start with Mr. White. What do you anticipate is going to happen with the Templeton Developmental Center? And do you see its remaining open equals jobs?
I'm scared for the Templeton Developmental Center. My sister-in-law works there. My uncle-in-law retired from there. And what has happened to the people up there is a crime. They've split up families. People that have lived together for a number of years, developed incredible relationships and counted each other in their limited capacity to get each other through the day. And they split those people up and they sent them to awkward places. There was a story of one gentleman who went out on the curb and would go out every day and sit on the bench waiting for his partner to come home from the home visit, what started apparently 3 weeks or 4 weeks earlier. They just don't get they don't have the capacity to understand that they've been ripped apart. One gentleman saw somebody come down there from the developmental center to his new home, and he went up to that person and he says, "I've been good, can I come home now?" What did we do there? We did a terrible thing. And Ann Goby supported keeping that open, and unfortunately our state representative did not second that. She did not co-sponsor it. I would have.
Thank you. Representative Anders?
We had a great meeting. We had a great meeting in Boston last week with Senator Brewer, Rep. Goby, and myself, with your leaders from Templeton, Julie Farrell, Virginia Wolf, I think, Kirk from Planning, the superintendent Ruth, and the principal. Sorry, I can't remember his name. We had a very thorough review of that. The move to move citizens into the communities has been a strategy. We will retain housing up there and add additional 7 units in 2 buildings. We are looking at how to keep that farm open and operational for the Commonwealth and the residents up there. And we're looking at taking 15 to 30 acres for a Templeton elementary school. My questions there were, how will our employees up there have their jobs and keep them or transition to other ones? Because they need the same kind of care and concern. They've been dedicated to serve there. We need to make sure we take care of the residents and the property and use that asset to Templeton on the elementary. So I'm confident there will be a citizens engagement part of that where you can get involved and give your ideas.
Thank you. Ms. Bilek?
I think that the tragedy really began when Templeton Developmental Center was created the way it was, with no transition planning, that this center, this state facility became many people's home, a long-term home, and it's really sad that those folks are now displaced. I believe that the center is going to close. I don't think that has to necessarily mean a loss of jobs. I do think there needs to be a real investment in some retraining for those folks who have been working there for a very long time, and some help from our state to really make the decision to allow those folks to have other jobs that pay an equally good wage with equal benefits. I know that there are specific needs in Templeton that certainly could be fulfilled by better use of that land, whether it's building a school, building a town hall, really looking at benefiting the town of Templeton with the property that sits within your limits.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser.
I like the fact that it was a farm. Right now we have 39% of our Massachusetts birds are in steep decline because there aren't enough open fields and early successional forest habitat. This is an area that is helping to preserve wildlife. I think it was a wonderful place for some developmentally disabled people to call home. I grew up on a farm myself, and I can't think of a better lifestyle. I'm personal friends with the man who's in charge of the herd of cows. He's a former running for Senator Wetmore. I feel that the state would have saved money. They're desperate for money at this point. If you have a fully functioning farm, you can, I understand you don't want to be competitive with local farmers because you could drive down the cost of their...
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And our final question, we will begin with Representative Andrews. Honesty and trustworthiness are very important characteristics of a legislator. Would you be willing to make available to the public your professional resume, and educational achievements?
Yes, and it's on my webpage. And I believe fully in full transparency. When you sign up for public service, it's a whole different level. I posted on my webpage when I took a part-time job. I've been transparent in sharing my journey. I will answer directly any question, and as long as you're respectful, I will share my learnings and where I'm headed in life, where my heart is, and how I want to serve. Being a public servant is challenging. At times people think you have to take and be a doormat. Respectful, I said, is required, because we have to have a society that inquiries with others, and at the end of the day, this profession needs more people to believe in. It's one of the professions I think that people are struggling with. I'm proud to be a politician. I'm proud to help increase the standard of a politician, and I'd be happy anytime to have a respectful conversation on any topic.
Thank you, Representative Andrews. Ms. Bialecki.
I absolutely agree and have no difficulty at all with sharing my background, history, resume, and educational achievements. I work for a nonprofit that receives public money, so that's always been very open and available to anyone who ever had a question. That's not an issue, and I think that's how it should be for everyone who's in public service. I think that transparency does have to run the gamut, that we have to absolutely make available to folks who we intend to represent our own background and history. Sometimes I am talking a little bit too much about sort of my journey and how I came to be where I am today. I think that every step we take along the way certainly moves us in a direction forward. And I think that our communities, by working together, can make that same step forward.
Thank you. Ms. Fraser?
I have two separate websites pertaining to my campaign. I actually have 4 or 5 websites. But I have a blog, and that blog is where I express opinions about various legislative matters or public policy issues or crises that I feel that we as a region or state or nation may be facing. I also have biography. I am a writer, and that is my baseline skill set. I have built upon my writing abilities. I'm also a novelist. I wrote a World War II book called In the Glory of the Tiger. And, but I feel that each past employment opportunity is a window into that world. You have all sorts of co-workers, and there's a whole way of doing business. And I'm very proud of every single experience I've had in my educational background, and I'm happy to share that with anyone.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you. My background is readily available. We've provided that information, most of it on the website. We'll provide anything anybody wants to know. I was a former Athol selectman, and frankly, my life's been on the front page of the Athol Daily News. So there's nothing about me that's behind any kind of curtain. The time I've had in the last few questions, I didn't get a chance to respond as I wished to about the EBT vote. It was said that it was done at 11 o'clock at night. When they start the sessions, they make up the rules. And one of the offered up rules was that they would allow representatives 24 hours to review bills before they vote on it. And Representative Andrews voted against that. So I believe that in that particular sense, she may have created her own problem. That's part of open government, because people need to have a chance. I agree with her. People need to have a chance to know what they're voting on and go through it. So why in the world would you vote against that kind of openness? Thank you.
Representative Andrews, we will give you a moment to respond.
Sure. Jim, I'd love you to come to Boston with me for a day and we'll have a long chat on how things work.
Now we move on to the candidate section. And on the questions from the candidates, please, we will allow for each of you to ask a question of each of the three candidates. And you have 90 seconds, again, for a response. And we will begin with Mr. White. You have an opportunity to ask a question to the other three candidates.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the platform. My question would be on open government, and what do you think can or should be done to make government more open and more accessible by the public, and certainly more transparent?
And we will start with Representative Andrews.
I heard an ouch. I meant to have a two-way conversation, so my apologies if that was a little sharp, but I really would like you to come and we can talk through that. I think we're making a lot of progress. Our governor is putting online in the speaker in our House and Senate more information than we've ever had on budgets, accessibility, questions. Our treasurer and our auditor are doing that as well. We need a partnership. We need citizens to be demanding. You know, I've come to the town meetings, I go to ours in Orange. Still too few citizens show up, and for good reason. Often they're shut down or pushed out. So we've got to kind of rebuild that relationship with citizens and their elected officials, where we know we need each other, and it's up to us to work together. Because if you get shut down 3 or 4 times, you stop coming to town meetings. Same as in Boston. I've been very pleased by working with Brian Eno, the legislative aide. We put tons of information out on our webpage, in the newspaper. We invite in questions. We invite people to come. We and I want partnership, open, and transparency, and I'm also pushing on that on the policy level, in particular on where we're spending our money and where we need more oversight and accountability on our money.
I like it.
I believe that transparent government is certainly a core foundation of democratic process. It's how we have town meeting votes that still occur in this region, which is the purest form of democracy that I've ever seen. We have to have that same expectation and accountability at our statewide level as well. We have to have things so that people understand them better, because the more educated our public and community is, the more engaged they can become in the process. It's really important that we have openness, but we also have to have education and support that really is going to bring folks to the table, to have their voice really be heard and feel that every vote and every conversation counts.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser.
Yes. The more things change, the more they stay the same. I do a lot of research on the 17th century and early forms of town government, selectmen's meetings, etc. And there's been a long-standing New England tradition of constant dissent. If you look at minutes of meetings from the 1600s, everyone is challenging everyone else. I continuously hear that, oh my God, you know, civility is gone the way of the dodo bird, and that may be true, but did it ever really exist? One of the things that I feel is a threat to the transparency is the downturn in the basic economic viability of media, such as our local newspapers. Because of the economic downturn, there's less advertising dollars, and our newspapers are profoundly important. Public access television is outstanding. I'm on the governance committee for the town of Orange, and what we've learned is that there is misinformation everywhere. And however, that is the only way that you can overcome that is by watching things on television, reading, etc. And you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. And next we will have Representative Andrews asking.
I have a related question. As we drove in tonight, we saw a very large contingent of our supporters of our Republican challenger. So my question, as we move forward very quickly to a Democratic primary, and very quickly after that, a general election, what is the strategy of each of my fellow Democrats to defeat the Republican challenger?
And we'll start with Ms. Fraser.
I am appalled by the Tea Party. There was a recent win in Texas, in a Texas primary, and the person who won is not trying to downsize government. He's trying to eliminate government. What the heck is the Constitution of the United States all about? We have a framework, and we need to learn to live within that framework. I would support each of the people sitting at this table. I believe profoundly in the democratic principles of fairness, leveling the playing field. I know that Denise has a heart of gold. I know that Rebecca has tremendous assets in her current position. She's learned a great deal about the needs of the region. And I know that Jim is a fine man with a very strong background in municipal government. And I feel that each of us has got to pull forward, really whoever wins has got to just promote in every way possible, not only the candidate, but strategically we have to fight the, in my opinion, forces of darkness that threaten us all.
Thank you, Ms. Roy.
From what I've seen, every time the Republican challenger talks, she hurts herself. Honestly, I think it's just a matter of getting our word out there and being able to draw attention to the differences. I also believe money's a big part, and the fundraising capability of whoever's there is going to need to be extreme, because let's face it, they're going to have money coming out of every orifice. The idea is that as a union member and a member of the AFL-CIO, those people that stand ready to back me should I win, and many of them have already started. We need to be able to have the financial wherewithal to complete this race to the end, because that's going to be a huge fight. So keep that in mind as you move forward, as fundraisers develop and whatnot. or have already developed. Money drives. People don't, I hate asking for money. I just can't stand it. But man, it's the nature of the beast here. So the idea too is also to, I believe, promote the open government standpoint. The reality is, and Denise, I take you up on your invitation, but I'm really aware of how it works. Everything's closed down. They voted to shut down everything in the, as far as openness in committees, so that committee votes are not public on the website. Why would they vote no on that? Why would you vote no on that? The reality is that we just need to point out the differences and show out the similarities as well.
Thank you. We'll give an opportunity for Representative Andrews to respond.
It's okay. On winning the primary and winning the general, there's two pieces to my work. One is to continue to do a great job for the current Second Franklin, and Brian Eno and I have full commitment to deliver that through January 1st. So first and foremost is to do our job well and let people know that. Second, on the campaign side, there's three things that won the election the first time, and we had no clue what we were doing the first time running. First, my faith in divine order. I pray and I stay centered in put me where you need me to do the most good. And I respect other people's differences, but in being transparent, that's one of the things that keeps me strong and centered as one of your leaders. The second ingredient is hard work. There will not be a team that works harder than me or us. You have to earn it every day, and you have to show up and take the field, play respectfully, stay the high ground, but earn the game. And the third thing is we have a great team. I've been very blessed to have a wonderful team the last time, a wonderful team through the last year and a half, and a team going into this campaign. And I'm grateful for that. We're recruiting new team members, so if you want to come along and rock and roll, we have some openings. But we also, when we're done at the primary, whoever's there, those resources and my time will continue to go to put the Democratic team on the field, from the president to the Senate to this rep race. So that's how we'll go after it, and I really need your help, and we need to get out there also and enroll new voters and the voters who haven't voted for a while, and give them a reason to believe again in this country and in our democracy.
Thank you. And our next question from Ms. Frazier.
All right, this is for Representative Andrews, although I'd be happy to hear everyone else's response. Several years ago, the legislature, after many, many trials and tribulations, passed a code of conduct for the pharmaceutical industry. And by the way, this is one of the AARP alerts. And the centerpiece of this was a gift ban, but it also has to do with the cost of any gift that would be provided, that a pharmaceutical would provide. And when people go to conferences or whatever, sometimes they're showered with gifts, they're wined and dined, etc. And at any rate, the ban was created. There was a code of conduct developed. And this spring, our House of Representatives at the State House voted to repeal the code of conduct for pharmaceuticals. Denise, I have no idea how you voted. Could you, do you remember that? And could you describe what you did and your thinking?
Sure, I voted no to not repeal it. I'm very upset that Massachusetts rolled back on that. The Senate and the House did not stand with that position, which is to ban gifts. It's a structural cost to a very expensive healthcare system. If we say we want to get at cost, we can't say and then let's pretend and not do something on gifts in the pharmaceutical or in other areas. So I voted against it. I brought it up again, and I will continue to bring it up until we get it back on the books and have Massachusetts lead. The other thing I think that is important is that we address the CEO salaries, not only in pharmaceutical but across the board, to get the wealth disparity fixed and to also deal with the cost structure on healthcare. So I'm very disappointed, Genevieve. I voted to keep the gift ban. I fought to put it back up for another vote. I went to the floor to ask for it, and we'll continue to do that until we get it back.
And Ms. Bielicki?
I was quite frankly a little surprised that that was repealed, because it seemed to very much go against a lot of the other policies and things that were moving in a very sort of unified direction. So to see that gift ban repealed was pretty shocking. I look forward to the upcoming year and new session happening to take that on again, because I think it is a really important cost containment measure, and I think the code of conduct that was part of that measure is really critical to ensuring transparency, accountability, and very real answers from our legislative body.
Thank you. And Mr. White.
I certainly would have voted with you, Representative Andrews. I believe you did the right thing. The reality, though, is that I don't want to say this, the code of conduct that was applied to the pharmaceutical agencies is also should have been a driving force. It seems like we've gotten away from a code of conduct anywhere, including the legislature. The legislature themselves, again, I can't stress this enough, votes to do things in private, keep things down. There was a vote against auditing the state-issued credit cards. Well, why would we vote against that? And I think everybody